Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of VOX VOMITUS. I am your host, Jennifer Ann Gordon, the author of the award-winning novel Beautiful, Frightening, and Silent, as well as Pretty Ugly and the Hotel series. Joining me all the way from fictional France is my VOX VOMITUS vixen. Fictional France, I just needed to do the alliteration. Allison Martine, author of the Bourbon books, which includes Dibs, Since September, Move on Melinda, and the recently released Climb the Salmon Ladder. With us today, not from fictional France, is New York Times bestselling author Madeline Martin, and we are here to discuss her new book, The Librarian Spy, which is also my dream job. That or like somebody who runs a haunted bookstore.
Both valid career choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Madeline, welcome back to VOX VOMITUS.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be back here with you ladies again. And I love that you guys decided to do a 1940s theme for this. I am in it. And I'm here for it. I love it. You ladies look beautiful.
We're also pretending in fictional France this is a red wine and not Mike's hard red, whatever it is. But it's hot. It's too hot for wine. I need something cold, and I am day drinking. But it's France. It's okay in France.
You can do whatever you want.
Wine. So let's just pretend like this bad boy is filled with wine in a wild. It's going to be a wild evening.
Cheers to everyone.
We're full of wine. I love it, Madeline.
So I tried really hard to get Victory Red lips, but I realized somewhere during the pandemic I threw out my red lipstick. So I spent like too much time today trying to mix colors, where I'm like, what if I put on a burgundy and then hot pink? And I'm like, nope,
no,
not that. What if I do like an orange brown and then the burgundy? Nope, still bad.
This is my Victory Red, but mostly all it does is show my rodent yellow teeth. So I'm not sure it's the widest choice, but I do like it, and it is my favorite red. But whether it was a victory to wear it, I'll just go back to you.
Well, I think that both of your lips look beautiful. Mine is from
Yours
kit
looks red.
Well, mine is from a kit that I got for free. Like when you buy like too much money worth of makeup and have regrets later, and they give you the little free satchel that really you were in for in the very beginning.
Oh yeah.
I got it from like 5 or 7 years ago. So if it crumbles midway through and like departs from my lips.
My Victory Red lipstick that I had apparently thrown away at some point was also a freebie, because I'm like, why would I buy this? But again, I bought it because I wanted the little bag that came free after spending like $145
it's the goodies
on like mascara.
Yeah, and then you never use the bag because really it's too small to even put anything in. So why do we have to do it for ourselves?
I don't, because it's cute. We like cute stuff.
Mine was like a fuchsia.
At some point, I don't know.
Well, and I laugh because this isn't from that, but it's the same brand that my mother-in-law, she gave me the freebie. And then I'm like, oh, you know what? This stays on when I drink, when I do my show. So that's why I only wear this kind, because I have other colors I like. But this is the only brand that look, it doesn't stick to my drink. I can do that. It doesn't come off.
It's
so
good
stuff. And yet they don't pay me to wear it. It's very sad.
They should.
They should.
They are not interested.
Let me know if I wear any of mine on my teeth later.
We'll tell
we'll
you.
Let you know.
For now.
We'll just be like, that'll be our spy code. I don't for people who are just
French
listening
poetry
to this.
Yeah.
They're like, what is happening?
Yeah, some people are using a cipher or a French poem mistranslated somehow. It's like, no. If it's the canine tooth, that means the Allies attack at night. This is what the spies really did.
I like this. I think you were pretty much made for spy work. I'm just saying. Like,
she's wearing the beret. Hello.
No, the beret says spy. I was looking for a baguette, but my kids ate them.
And I'm dressed as the librarian, or as you know, I was gonna say sexy librarian, but I feel like viewers would be like, I beg to differ.
You're a sexy librarian. I like it.
Thanks.
So sassy librarian. We'll go for the alliteration.
Sassy, sexy librarian.
Yes.
Madeline, we've just babbled for like this is what we do, 5 minutes of the show.
4 minutes, 30 seconds. We're fine.
You're here to talk about The Librarian Spy, which is your follow-up to the blockbuster sensation, your last book, which was The Last Bookshop in London, which was also World War II set.
Yes.
Tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about The Librarian Spy, which again is another World War II set book, hence our 1940s outfit.
Thank Thank you. So the Librarian Spy actually starts off with, okay, wait, now I'm like,
We're arousing you too much. We're sorry.
I know.
This is not an interrogation. You're not pulling out your nails.
I really should have been drinking. That's my problem. This water just isn't cutting the mustard.
No, it doesn't. It never does.
No. But yeah, so basically the Librarian Spy, really the inspiration for it was the American librarians that would go to neutral countries to gather publications and other various intel that they could send back to America to sort of research things like so for example, in the Warsaw Ghetto, when they were collecting all of the fur coats from like all the Jews that were in the ghetto, it's because they were going to attack Russia. So seemingly like, little things that wouldn't make a difference actually have huge impacts on the intel. So part of the character, which would be Ava's character, which is Jennifer, she was actually working for the Library of Congress, and she gets sent over to Lisbon to do research. And the other character, Alice, is Allison's character, Elaine, and she was inspired by an actual French woman who worked with the French Resistance and the underground printing press. And so these two women will sort of get to communicate through coded messages. So.
Which is a lot different than how Jennifer and I actually communicate, which is constant text messages. It would have been a lot easier if they had constant text messages. BT dub, sending refugees, TTYL. Okay, bye.
And then a meme that has Adam Driver in it for some reason.
And probably a few emojis, right?
A few emojis, like the little bourbon glass.
Oh yeah.
The shrug emoji.
What are those Nazis?
I roll occasionally. I sort of got a day that goes by I don't use the eye roll emoji.
I feel like my most used emoji is that like face that's like ugh. That, like just like that cringy smile face.
Very No, and I love that you had the dual POV, and not just so that Jen and I could each do a different character, but you had different countries even represented, and how the different countries were faring during the war. So the Librarian Spy is based on one character who's there, but she's in Portugal, where it's a neutral country, and then Elaine is set in France, where it is not so neutral, and they are not doing so well, and just the experiences these women had were very different. They were not drinking a lot of pretend this is red wine. Yeah. They weren't drinking a lot of that because all the Nazis got it. So, and
just like the lush descriptions of food or what was passing for food was also
very intense. Kind of research, just reading a lot of firsthand accounts, and even just getting to have the opportunity to go to both countries and get to see everything. But really like the dichotomy between the two countries, it was so vast. You had in Portugal, you didn't have really any rationing going on. Apparently there was like a blip toward the end of the war where there was a slight ration going on, but it was so minuscule that I couldn't find any information about it. And actually the funny thing is, the way that I started doing my research is I got this it's like sort of like Google Translate like upgraded, and so I would type a question
for spies.
Yes, for spies, of course.
Google Spy.
Yes, Google Spy translate code thing. And so I would type a question in Portuguese or in English, and it would translate to Portuguese. And then I'd put that in my search engine, and I would get Portuguese results.
And then you translate those back then to know what you were looking at. You're like, I don't know.
And then over and over again. Like
yes,
Ouroboros.
I have to say, there was not a lot of information out there about Portugal during the war, because in fact, I actually had asked a question sort of like on a forum at one point about something that happened in Portugal during World War II. And somebody said nothing happened in Portugal during World War II. And I was like, well, okay, actually a lot of stuff did, but okay.
No, but that made it really interesting, because so the last book we read of yours, The Last Bookshop in London, tells you by the title that it was in London. And I think a lot of us kind of know the blackout. And for people like me, we grew up going, yes, and all the children were sent off to Narnia to keep them safe. So that's what happened. And we know kind of the American experience. And yes, while Ava is American, she's experiencing it in Portugal. And if you would have asked me, what role did Portugal play in World War II? I'm like, I don't know. Were they there? Because
What's funny is
one of the places. France, yes, Portugal.
And I've been to Portugal and spent time there, and I still had no idea. Like reading this, I'm like, oh, they were neutral. Well, that makes a heck of a lot of sense.
That's why they're still there.
That's why the buildings are still here.
Yeah. Right. Well, and it seems like every country has some sort of World War II commemorative museum or like plaques and memorials and everything else. And there's none of that in Portugal. at least not that I was able to find. And I think it's really because, you know, for them, they didn't have the horrors that were really accompanied with it,
Yeah.
everything. Now, I will say, for those of you who don't know, a little fun fact for you. So Ian Fleming's 007 series was actually inspired by his time in Lisbon, Portugal. So that will kind of give you an idea of how many spies really were sort of coming and going.
Everybody's a spy there. That's the only reason they're there. They're just hanging out to spy on each other.
They're buying magazines, they're eating food, and they're going to like fantastic dinner parties where they have to wear elbow gloves over the elbow, which I almost wore today, but it didn't go with like my everyday work dress.
Well, and I'm not gonna lie, if I tried to drink in gloves, it sounds elegant, but I would totally like slip and
How do you need texture
like
here.
Grippers. You need like gripper.
You do.
For drinking.
I had gripper gloves for band. I don't think that would apply.
I've done a lot of like I'm going to call it like elegant cosplay as like a ballroom dance teacher. Like we did a lot of like period parties, lots of 1920s parties, some 40s parties. And so I own a ridiculous amount of like little fur stoles, over the elbow opera gloves. And it is incredibly difficult to drink in gloves.
Oh yeah.
It's just, it's not glamorous, especially when they're white gloves. Because I'm sloppy and I will always spill something. So then I'm wearing like white silk gloves and it's like, looks like I've committed a murder.
It was little Chianti. It was no big deal. But okay, can I get the job of being a librarian spy? Because when I was reading what they were asking her to do, first off, I don't speak enough other languages to qualify. My Spanish is terrible, and that's really all I got. So I would not qualify. But
I was like, I know a little French and a little German.
You can speak. Okay, can Roman teach you a little bit of Russian, maybe?
I know some Russian, but it's mainly curse words.
Maybe.
I mean, that could be for spy work.
Yeah.
Just the idea of like, okay, so you get sent to a foreign country that's neutral, and your job is to pick up people's papers. And I was like, this sounds like a great job, but then she's got to make them all fit on microfilm. And I'm like, peace out. Nope, not doing that, because that sounds like the most tedious, horrible work ever.
Yes.
I feel like nowadays that would go to an intern.
Spy interns. Okay, there's your comedy. The intern spy.
If I ever need like a follow-up book, there we go. The spy intern.
The spy interns. You're like, yeah, no, that's what my interns do. That's what my grade. I go to the dinner parties and get hit by attractive Russians or Austrians. Yes.
But yeah, you know, these poor like librarian spies though, they really were sent over and they were like, go on, you guys got this. And everybody else, all these other countries, like these are like consummate spies. And the poor Americans are like, oh.
You're like, so I buy newspapers?
Like, this is all you brought me?
Right?
Nobody told me what to do. And poor Ava, nobody tells her what to do. And I do love that the very first time she's out, she basically is like regurgitating, not quite state secrets, but she's like, my neighbor, she did this. And they're like, dude, that guy's not. He said he was Austrian.
I know.
Austrian, all right.
You know, and they actually did have they had German spies actually did pretend to be Austrian, specific to woo the American women who were over there to get secrets. So
because we're a sucker for accents.
We're easily wooed.
They know it now.
Yes, so that actually came from actual historical fact as well. And her being all blubby with that was me, because I was like, that's what I would do.
And I will just say, Alice and I pictured him as Alexander Skarsgård, as we do for any like dashing blonde kind of villainous, maybe Nazi type. Or it's like, ooh, if that was Alexander Skarsgård, I too would probably have spilled state secrets.
Well, and I said him after I said, and I had to look up his name, is Lucas Kleintank, which didn't help that he was also named Lucas.
Oh yeah.
Did you see him in Man in the High Castle? So again, a blonde
secret Nazi
trying to pretend he's not a Nazi, but I see that Lebensborn, he's Nazi, just all over Nazi every time. So if we're getting a movie out of that's who my suggested casting is. I don't know. I mean, I think you have Ava and Elaine right here. If you want to go
I mean, I did go to school for theater. They're a little older than the characters.
They have great lighting. Nobody also, like 10 years off. We're good.
You can pretend to be American because you are. I cannot do a realistic French accent.
All you have to do is go home, baguette.
I am
just throw an ooh la la every now and then.
Is it? And just like maybe smoke and just be like,
I can't smoke either. No, and
cigarettes.
I just the candy ones that are bubble gum, and then I start eating it like Allison.
You really only get like one good puff on those, I think.
Yeah,
you're like,
and then it stuck to your lips. I wonder how that works.
And then afterwards you'd be like, and it would just get like all gummy inside because it would just fill up with spit.
So like Madame, as opposed to the real thing that you were saying, where people they'd have like a puff of cigarette and then put it out and send it to someone else who needed the cigarette more. I'm like, does anybody need a cigarette more? But yeah, if you're addicted to the nicotine, you really kind of do.
It's not even actually the addiction to nicotine. It's that
you could trade it.
The currency of cigarettes was so incredibly high for the people who were addicted.
Yeah.
Willing to trade things like bread and food and necessities for that cigarette. That partially stubbed out pre-smoked cigarette. Yeah.
So Madeline, we're laughing, we're having a good time, we're pretending we're in Lisbon. But you deal with a lot of like very bleak, very tragic. Obviously, this is heavy World War II stuff. Yeah. This is not though we're laughing and having a good time, and Allison and I are wearing like ridiculous outfits.
We're getting serious now.
We're getting serious. We're talking about the book.
Also, the hat is hot.
This is,
I get that.
It's a heavy book. Like subject matter wise, especially Elaine's storyline. And, so I know you were writing this and researching and traveling during the pandemic. How did it affect your mindset to be going through as like the whole world was we were thinking it was the end of the world at the time, and you're researching and writing this book that was in fact the end of the world for many people living it.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I think with writing books like this, you're a lot more sensitive to current events. Like, for example, when I was because I actually wrote the book in 2 chunks. I wrote first I wrote Ava's POV, all of hers. I actually pre-plotted it out. So it was all plotted out perfectly. And then I only wrote Ava's and that's it. And then I only wrote Elaine's, and then I spliced.
I was wondering.
And actually, fortunately, my plotting was detailed enough that it was seamless. I was very proud of myself. Like typing for the win.
Like, take them by stack of chapters and then just shuffle them like a stack.
I write in Scrivener, and so I all the odd chapters were Ava, and all the even chapters were Elaine. Yeah.
I didn't even realize that, and I just finished reading it last night. All I could think was, how did she go back and forth like this?
No, I mean, it was really back and forth. But the fact that
they had their unique voice when I was writing it too. But the thing is, so when I was it was interesting because when I was writing Ava's POV, everything was happening in Afghanistan. With all the refugees and everything. And like all the refugees that were coming into America, I had a friend who was actually helping out at a station that was accepting refugees and helping them get placement in America and jobs and everything. And it was so interesting and heartbreaking to really read about these people in Portugal. Because for those people who don't know, with it being a neutral country, refugees came into Portugal in the hopes that they could go somewhere else. And it was sort of relative safety because there's a lot of reasons. But at any point, Germany could decide to attack Portugal and easily take it. And then they would once more be under Nazi occupation. So, it really was sort of like a tenuous level of safety. And they really were sort of like in this interminable wait trying to escape as well. And so, reading all of these stories about these refugees who were essentially trapped in Portugal trying to escape, and then reading about all the Afghan refugees coming in and like, the things that they were saying, the things they were experiencing, all of that being really echoing in my research. It really did have a very profound impact on me while I was writing those particular scenes.
Well, and they were heartbreaking because you'd be reading about these people here who some of them might be wearing like their fanciest clothes because they literally had to wear them out, and they've got these jewels and stuff, and yet the jewels wouldn't be enough to really buy them food or anything like that. And then whether or not they had a visa to leave, and then whether or not they could actually get on a ship, and just the bureaucracy. I mean, none of us like bureaucracy now, but the idea that your life depended on whether or not you could get
had 6 copies of something.
Exactly. Oh, but you managed to lose 2 copies. How is that? They were all in the same envelope, but all right, I'll do it again. And
right. Well, and the thing is, so many countries didn't want to say we aren't accepting any more refugees. So rather than say that, they just made the red tape super thick so that nobody could get through it. In that particular instance, like with having to have so many copies and having to have, and a lot of these people needed to have like either a character reference, or they had to have a proof that they had the income that would sustain their life in America. These people didn't know anybody in America. They escaped with the clothes on their back.
Right. And now you want a character reference from who? Everybody we know is dead. So how is that going to work?
Exactly. Or nobody that you know is in America. You don't have the opportunity to have a character witness. And the thing is, like, and it's interesting because I thought this was just America, but I've actually read it in an additional research that I'm doing right now. In my next book is set in Warsaw, Poland, and it's called the fifth. What was it? The Fifth Agent. And so basically what the fifth agent is it is the person who is pretending to be a refugee that sneaks through the borders and actually is a spy for the enemy that is now living, that is now living in America under the auspices of being a refugee. And so, that
as so many refugees want to do, lose, or spies want to do, let's lose most of our body weight.
Yeah.
Let's have maybe our fingernails pulled out. Maybe our teeth have been knocked out. We are definitely spy material. Definitely. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really, but the thing is, Americans were terrified of the fifth agent. I mean, they were always talking about it in newspapers, watch out for the fifth agent, and so like they really, like the media really worked up Americans to be so freaked out by the idea of this sort of, this inconspicuous fifth agent that would be coming in and taking all of America's secrets. Because if you think about it, we're so insulated by the ocean. Where we are, especially when you think about what was happening in Europe. It was all right there.
So far away.
We were so far away. And so we had that insulation. And when you think about the fact of like, all it takes is really one, kind of like the one bad apple to kind of ruin the bunch. It really just takes one person kind of coming over and getting the right information. And, we could have been in a very bad situation. So it was very much built up in people's minds. Like this fear was very, very real. So,
and I feel like we still experience that now.
Yes.
I mean, we definitely do. I remember it's, many years ago now, but I am married to a Russian man. And when we first got to know each other, we were living in a different part of the country. And there was a Russian spy ring, which were sleeper agents that all got kind of busted about an hour and a half from where we live.
Oh boy.
Like children on up. It was like a family of 7 people that were brought here. And this was like in Ohio, which is so weird.
I think I saw that as a plot of a movie recently. I won't say which one.
Yeah. But I mean, it was just very strange. And like, I just remember like looking at like my now husband and just being like, that's insane. Like, I never thought he was a spy. And he's like, just so you know, I'm not a spy.
Like, I'm not from Ohio.
I'm not one of those.
Ballroom dancer, not spy.
Yeah.
But that would be a good ballroom dancer spy.
Ballroom dancer from Ohio spy.
That's what it was.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I think even now, like, our country still, and I don't want to get like too political at all with this, but like we still kind of demonize other places and say, that just takes like one bad apple to come in.
Yeah, we definitely, I mean, like I said, I think it really has to do with the fact that it's because we are so insulated, it does get so incredibly complicated because I have families that's all military and works with the government and stuff like that. So it's like, we get into these discussions and you hear like all the deep, the layers and everything. And yeah, it does get very convoluted.
What I'm hearing though, Madeleine, is you actually have the state secrets because you're related to all these people who, when they start drinking at the family get-togethers, they're like, by the way.
Right.
By the way, did you know that they're still recruiting librarian spies?
Sign me up and then teach me.
And you could be like, I know 2 people that are ripe for the job.
Right. One doesn't speak French, but she looks French when she wears a beret.
And that is the most important thing. It is better to look than be something.
The language.
Look, if Instagram and TikTok have taught us anything, it is that it is better to look the part.
Yes.
Oh, that's true. That's I better drink. I'm sad.
Yeah. So Madeline, I wanted to ask, so I'm very intrigued by your writing process, writing them both separate. Because I know I follow you on Facebook. We are friends online. We have not met in person yet. I feel like my hair is too terrible to ever go to Florida, so you're gonna have to like come north.
I'm not gonna lie, when you mentioned that you had a whole dress up box, I was like, we should totally go to Jennifer's sometime and have a whole dress up party.
I have more than a dress up box. I have an entire giant walk-in closet that broke. The rod broke when I put all my costumes on. So
okay, well, I'm there.
All right, well, come.
Party.
Everybody party at my house, dress up party, grown up dress up party with alcohol at my house.
No gloves.
No gloves. No gloves.
Because then we can't drink.
Yeah. So when you said you wrote them separately, that sort of made sense to me because I watched you. That sounds so creepy. I watched you during the pandemic go on 2 separate research trips.
Yes.
And I was just like, God, those are months and months apart. Like, how did that work? Because I am the type of dork that has to write the story chronologically.
Well, and
even multiple POV, I'm like, nope, now it's so-and-so's chapter.
And usually that's how I've always written too. In fact, I'm very type A. So the fact that I didn't do it that way, this was a complete and total deviation from my norm. But the reason why I had to do it that way is really like, even though they both sort of follow the same trajectory, they both had 2 very different stories.
Yeah, they do.
The settings were so vastly different. And I was worried that my brain would not transition fast enough. It's like,
you can imagine it.
And like you look down at something close and you look far away and they're like, takes a moment, like fuzzy for a long time.
No, I get that.
I was thinking my brain would be like, wait, are we in France? Or are we in Portugal? What is going on?
Can I get that chicken sausage? That's really what I want. All right, I'm back on the food again. I apologize, but the fact that they were like,
Allison is a foodie.
I am, and I'm a foodie in books, and your book both made me hungry and sad all at the same time for the lack of food. And like, I'm drinking not real wine, but the idea that they were drinking chicory instead of coffee just breaks my heart, because I know there's still people from that generation who are like, well, yeah, I got used to drinking chicory, so I drink Postum, and I'm just going, no.
Yeah.
I will say that coffee in Portugal is delicious.
Is that the bica? How do you pronounce that?
It is so good. Yeah. Honestly, like when I was writing the book, really in my mind, my thought process was I wanted readers to read about Portugal and I wanted their mouths to water. And then I wanted them to read about France and I wanted their stomachs to growl. And
it worked.
It worked.
All the firsthand accounts that I read of life in France during the Nazi occupation, the overriding theme was hunger. They were always so hungry. And so I really wanted to make sure that I showcased that and really like shared that through the character's perspective.
You definitely
I think there's like a scene you have in there, and it's not a spoiler because it doesn't give away a plot point, but where somebody sees what was left behind by Nazis who so everyone else is on rations. And even if you have a ration stamp, you have no guarantee you'll actually be able to get the thing because the bread isn't allowed to be sold while it's still fresh. And the Nazis leave behind a plate that still has like butter and meat juices, and they're looking at somebody's leftovers, and the idea that they're like so hungry they would go eat Nazi leftovers, and just the horrible grossness of, yes, everybody around me is starving, but I'm going to eat at a cafe and enjoy myself and leave the food out there. Oh, it's fine. It was a horrible scene, but very well written. Let's put it that way.
Thank you. Thank you.
So did you have to research? I mean, obviously most of it was firsthand knowledge because you were reading letters and stuff, but like little things like saving the breadcrumbs, like, again, not a spoiler, but like such an incredible detail that I will say my father was much older than my mother. He was a child during World War II, but he grew up, during rations in our country.
Yeah.
And even he saved breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
But in growing up, we had
for thickeners,
we had a jar of breadcrumbs in our house at all times. Like he would make toast and Save the breadcrumbs and just be like, we can use this for gravy. We can use this for broth. We can
to fortify it. Yeah.
And this was the 80s.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's, and even, you know, just like, I remember one thing that I read about, well, that's the thing is that when I do my research, like I read dozens and dozens, and I read every nonfiction book that I can possibly find that I can squeeze into my brain. If I could actually get like a matrix plug in the back of my brain, like I would totally be the first candidate to be like, sign me up.
Yeah. Like, I don't care if there's side effects.
I just want to learn everything. Like I think that's one of the things that I enjoy the most about research is really finding those details that bring life back then into life in your brain, like while you're reading the story.
So do you do a lot of research before you even put fingertips to keyboard?
Yes. So
I actually, what you and I do, Jen, where we're like, I don't know, Google it as we're typing.
I know. I'm like, that is opposite my writing style.
Cancers, water. So that explains a lot.
I know. When you were just like, my plotting really worked, I was like, oh, I'm going to try that sometime.
I will say, like, when I was writing historical romance, you know, I had a lot of the foundational knowledge for those particular stories already because I had written in Regency and medieval, and I had all of that knowledge beforehand. So
you don't do it for every book. You're like, I know it now. Yeah, okay.
I really was kind of just able to, you know, I do still plot because I am type A. But, you know, I could run through the plot and then just type it up really quick. But as far as, you know, with World War II historical fiction and being, you know, like a total research nerd, I want to learn everything that there possibly is about the characters, how they would live. And the thing is, I can't actually even make these characters until I've done probably about 9 months worth of research. And the reason for that is that I have to understand I have to put my finger on the pulse of the mood and the culture that they live in, because everybody's reaction is going to be different to certain events depending on, you know, how they've grown up and what's going on. And, you know, it really, like somebody, for example, in France is going to react differently than somebody in Portugal, than somebody in America. And so you have to understand, you know, who those people fundamentally are before you can even really start to build their characters.
I love that. So did you find the idea of the Americans going over to Portugal to, you know, take the magazines and newspapers? Did you find that piece of research while you were researching The Last Bookshop in London, or were you just blanket researching World War II, everything? Oh my God.
I'm always on the lookout. Like as you're sort of drawing to a close on that next book, or like even for me, like right now, because I do the character development and then I do the plot and then I write. And so my writing is like, I get to write in like 3 months, and that's a little bit nerve wracking. That's where I am right now.
No pressure.
My like 2 and 3 a.m. wake up sweats, like, oh my God, I only have like 1.5 months left. But you know, like, and then I totally deviated. My brain was like, there goes that.
No, that's okay. I was literally just saying, like, this is why our show is called Word Vomit. Vox Vomitus. It's
well,
like,
you were saying how like it's going to be different for where they are, and the idea of like the American going there and they're going to have a different reaction. Yeah. I'm just still laughing at the fact that you said it takes like 9 months, and I'm going, so it's basically you're birthing a baby. So you've got the 9 months gestation period, and then they show up, and then you're like, oh, that's who you are. Now I can write you. Because
and then you have to deal with them for 3 months.
Yeah, and I'm just like, because I don't do the research aspect because I just make stuff up. But the idea of you need to know who this person is before you can have them do that. Like mine's up here more rather than the historical, because I don't do historical because I can't handle the research because no one can just plug it in my head. But I did want to know, did you have a whole book that was just about Jerusalem artichokes and rutabagas?
No, but they were mentioned so prevalently.
So often I was just like, Jerusalem artichokes everybody must have just been so sick of it.
Yes. And apparently they cause really bad indigestion and heartburn as well.
That's all I could think during parts of this. I was like, my body would not be able to handle all of those rutabagas.
Yeah.
Would have died. I'm sorry.
I would have died. And when I was trying to find pictures to like make the graphic for this episode, and I was like, what should I was like, what are my sayings? I'm like, obviously Madeleine's picture, obviously the book cover. I need something else. And I'm like, it's a rutabaga. And I'm like, no, it's not a rutabaga.
People will be very confused by this book.
I know. People would be like, I don't understand what this is about.
Is it Are we eating rutabagas?
Is it like the world's saddest cookbook?
in ways, but fortunately we didn't.
It's the world's saddest
Give
cookbook
it.
spy.
Right. But I will say that the picture of Lisbon that you got was really beautiful.
Yeah.
I love Portugal. I will say I was only in Lisbon momentarily because I was supposed, like, I went to Porto. My husband and I went to Porto. That's where we were supposed to go. There was terrible weather. We landed in Lisbon. Nobody told us we were in Lisbon.
Oh.
Nobody told
Where did you
anybody
think you
on our
were?
plane. We thought we were in Porto. And then I heard somebody go, I think this is the Lisbon airport. And we were
They
like,
didn't even tell you were at a different airport.
they did not. I will not
They kind
mention
of
the
tell you where you
airline.
landed.
I will. No, they did not. An entire plane of people waiting for luggage was like, "Where are we?"
Oh my God.
At least
So
you were in the right country.
we were in the right country, so that was a huge bonus. And they ended up putting our entire flight on buses and bussed us across the country to Porto. So I was only in Lisbon momentarily. Got to see a ton of Portugal because those are on opposite ends of the coast.
Well, and at least it's a small country,
Yeah.
so you know.
So it was 7 hours.
Oh,
of
so
the
you were
most-
going? Were you going like this one?
Russia.
I know. We were like, wait, how long is it going to take us to get across the country? They're like, 7 hours. And I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have rather
the coast of
spent-
California. That's
Yeah.
it.
Well, actually, when we went to Lisbon, we actually encountered some issues because this was, you know, and I was very grateful that we got the opportunity to even travel at all. And to take a quick step back, the reason why we actually did them individually was not to save money, because that did not happen for sure. It would have been way cheaper to have done them together. But when I went to France, Portugal was closed. And when I went to Portugal, France had just closed, and I was so grateful that I had the opportunity to go to France while I could. So my husband came with me to Lisbon, and
but not right away.
Well, it's because that was back when you had to have the PCR. And so I got my results, and he did not get his results. And I, you know, it was one of those things where if he and I were just going on vacation, I would have stayed back with him. But I was like, this is literally for work. Like,
Yeah, you're like,
had tours
honey, I
booked,
love
you know,
you. This is my life right now.
Yeah.
Bye.
You know, I have 7 days in Portugal. I have all of this research that I need to do. I have tours that are booked and paid for. Like, you know, I'll have to see you there. And fortunately, within 24 hours, he was there. But it was really awful. Like, I remember like walking away from security and like, you know, my lip is quivering and I'm like crying and like trying to, like, my mask like covers it up. But I was so upset. It was really so sad to just like leave him. And I was like on the phone with him, like, I love you.
Okay, did that inspire any of the storylines? I mean, you were only separated for like a day or two, but you have
you know where it came from.
I
know. There's a little bit of romantic angst. In the book,
but there are husbands and wives and loved ones separated, as happens in war. And the fact that you've got multiple characters having that happen, you're like, I'm drawing on the fact that my husband didn't get his PCR, but probably a lot worse because, you know, the PCR, you knew he was okay. It was just a matter of not traveling together, not, oh, hey, he's being denied a visa, and here you've got a person already in America and the rest of the family's not, and this person's in the war. Because you have 2 different storylines, but there are supporting characters in both storylines. So it's like I'm wearing the victory red, not even in honor of Elaine, because I don't remember her really wearing much of the victory. It was Nicole who did, who's a blonde. I didn't dye my hair blonde or wear a blonde wig because I
almost did until I realized I could not wear my French outfit because I wore my French outfit just like a month ago on a show. I'm like, I can't wear my black and white striped shirt.
And again, I'm wearing it. Not your shirt.
Back.
I know. I was like, I was going to wear this, and she's like, oh, I have that same outfit. I'll wear that.
I shall be French today.
You will be French.
I shall be French. Yeah, you have these amazing supporting cast. So it's like in many ways they are 2 different books that you wrote simultaneously. Right. So it's like, so if I'm following you wrote Ava's story first and then Elaine's, or Elaine's and then Ava's, because you went to Elaine's country.
Yes, you're right. I wrote Elaine's first and then Ava's.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that would make more sense because I'm like, you were in France.
Yes.
Elena's. Okay.
Yes. And then at the very end, after both of those, I ended up going to DC, and I got to go to the Library of Congress as well.
To touch stuff.
Like, Allison and I just had like dork face completely. We're like, yes.
Well, you know, I have to say, in the course of 2 months, I had 7 PCR tests for
That's
all
too
of this
many.
travel. Which
Every time you go someplace, ask me again.
I mean, I'm telling you, by the time, well, and the very last one was to go to the Library of Congress because they had because of course, everything is always so up in the air.
Right.
It was like, do I need to have a PCR test? Like, can I go? Like, do I have to sign up in advance? Blah, blah, blah. So I was reading through and it said if you have traveled out of the country within, it was like
and that's
or something, then you needed to have the PCR test. And I had just gotten back from Lisbon like 10 days before. So I had to have the PCR test. So I got the PCR test and I had to make sure it was within so many hours. And how about they never even freaking asked me for it?
you're like,
I was like,
I'm so sorry.
brain touched for this.
okay, and also I'm a little
the
confused.
PCR test is not a joking matter.
No,
it is
but
like
also-
touching underneath your eyeball.
Yeah, they'll check your eye color from the back. Here's
Right?
the question, guys. Books can't get COVID, so what were they worried about you doing in the library? Like,
I think it's
because
just
it doesn't have good air circulation, or what's the deal?
well, you still were around people because they
Okay.
had librarians and everything, but
Mhm.
it just, it wasn't my favorite. But I will say, like, of all of the PCR tests, I have to say that France was by far the worst because, like,
Oh,
and
because they
apparently
knew you were an American and they were
Like,
like,
ah,
it was that I had a
they
friend.
used a baguette.
Fun. So what they would do is, and this wasn't just me. I was actually consulting with a couple of friends who were traveling internationally for research then too. And France, this was their thing, I guess. But they take the little nose rod and they touch your brain with it, and then they take their hand off and they leave it for 30 seconds, and everything in your head liquefies out of
Oh
every.
my god,
Oh.
mean
And
and
then-
sad.
And then they do the other nostril the exact same way, and you're just like,
already brain traumatized from the first one.
Horrible.
You're just like, let's make sure we get everything. Is that mucus or spinal fluid? I'm not even sure anymore because
Yeah.
we may have ruptured something. That
It's
should
like
Yeah.
the
it was
it's like the weird
brutal.
brain fluid.
Yeah.
I will say I didn't travel during the height of COVID at all, but when I finally did travel, it was right before they
lifted the ban.
lifted the ban. So we had to test before we came home. And I was on all of the message boards for the country we were traveling in. It was Iceland. And like,
I saw your
are
pictures
there,
and it was
are-
beautiful.
oh, thank you. It was like, are there nicer places to get tested? Because there are some places I've heard this from other countries where it's like, there's some that are like, they barely do it. Like, but Iceland,
Like, where can I
Iceland's
see
a
under the
tiny,
wire there?
Iceland's a tiny country. There was like, really, we had 2 choices, like at the
Seriously.
airport or in
Regardless
Reykjavik.
of whether you're getting tested there or even our pediatrician, I know which of the nurses are harder on my children. I'm like, oh, she's nice. Don't that one. Oh, that one. I think she sticks her like up to the elbow. That's not
Yeah,
good.
I know. I was watching like the 2 people giving PCR tests, like as my husband and I were like in line, and I'm like, oh, I hope I don't
Shifting
get the
line.
guy. I hope I don't get the guy. I hope I don't get the guy. Oh, God.
It's like the grocery store checkout, but way worse. You know.
I know.
Oh, which line do I get in? Ooh.
And I'm like, I picked the wrong one. I picked the wrong one. It's fine. I needed my brain tickled. It's fine.
It's all good. It's all good.
But and he and I had that like weird conversation that you have in like bus stations where it's like, if you're COVID positive, I'll stay here with you.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, and we'll go broke because it's so expensive.
Well, I actually did get insurance too beforehand. I had travel insurance, and they actually have a COVID clause. So if something happens and you test positive for COVID, they actually will pay for your stay while you're there.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
good to
I will say, and I'm going to advocate this 100%. Always get trip insurance. I had a friend who went like on a month-long trip to Europe and broke her leg the first day.
No.
Oh my gosh. Well, so many cobblestone streets. I'm
many
surprised.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it doesn't happen all the time.
But Elisa wants to know if the book you're currently writing is also set during World War II, and that's one set in Poland, I'm guessing, or another time period. I'm assuming it is, but I don't want to answer for you.
That one is also World War II. It's set in Warsaw, Poland, and I have 2 protagonists in this one as well. Although because they are closely linked together, I am doing every other chapter as I'm writing this one.
Okay.
But one
Oh.
has friends, one will be in the Warsaw ghetto, and one will be out on the Polish side.
Very nice. But hopefully it won't require this, though. Hold on. Okay.
Right.
Whew, I'm all right. But I know what you mean, because even when I'm writing, if I'm away from the manuscript for a while, which has been the case, just getting my brain back in it, I can't imagine hopping, because in many ways you're manuscript hopping. Even if they're ultimately going to be in the same book, they're set in different countries, and yes, they're set in the same time period, but they're going through totally different things. And the idea is your cat running into things.
I know.
Yeah,
Was that a
she
cat?
It's your cat.
My
But
poor cat has the cone of shame. She just got it for the first time today, and bless her heart, she's just running into everything.
We're like, where's the cat?
Well, I will say, right as you did that, my dog is on a CBD thing for the
Your
first
dog
time today,
fine.
and he's gone now. But like a second ago, his face was like on my leg, and I'm like, I don't know if he's cool. Oh, it's his face is on my leg again. He's fine. He's back.
Is he tripping out?
No, I think he's just like
Mellow dog.
a little bit mellow, but he knows I'm talking about him because now he is right under my foot.
Like, boop.
Is he like wagging his little tail?
I know he's like, am I on your podcast, mommy?
Yes, you are.
Oh,
Yes, you are.
Yes.
But okay, so the Poland story, so it's set in the same general time period. Is your game plan to make sure you write books set in every country that was involved in World War II to justify traveling all over the world? Because I applaud that idea to just keep going, well, what was happening in World War II? Well, I need to hit Hawaii now because that was an important place.
You should do one that's Hawaii and Czech Republic, because Czech Republic was also, I don't want to say neutral, but it's like Prague was one of the few cities that nothing was destroyed.
I'm not trying to just get you vacations, Madeline.
So you could do like
very hard
Prague, Hawaii.
that would be really cool. Yeah, the funny thing is, well, it's mainly wherever I can find a story idea, and I didn't intentionally do in new countries. In fact, I will say with the Librarian Spy, researching 3 countries for one book, man, I love research, but even that was a lot for me to chew on, just because it was a lot.
I can't handle more. Just give me Poland this time.
But really, it just depends on whatever the story is, because I really do like to be inspired by actual things that happened. So it really is going to basically be, what particular happens with this. I actually have like about 5 ideas already kind of rolling in my head for my because this last book deal that I got was a 2-book deal, one for the Keeper of Hidden Books, which is my next book, and then another book that I don't have.
And then the bookish World War II of book World War II.
Well, they all have books somewhere, because we have bookshop, librarian. Because I know Jen and I were talking, and this is not a spoiler, but we're like, I wonder why Ava got the title. Elaine didn't, and maybe it's just because you wanted to have the word Librarian Spy is just a kick-ass title.
It's the brand.
Thank you. Well, I have to say that when it comes to the title, I didn't really actually have any say. So
fair.
We get that.
But I did really want. It was very important to me to be able to have both women represented on the cover.
They are, yes.
I do really feel like, ultimately, it is Ava's story, because she is the she's the initial character, and then she's the last character to kind of have her say. But I really do feel like this story is about both of these women's efforts and
very equally
everything that they've done, really in the war. So yes, I'm so grateful that they got to have both of them on the cover. But as far as if I'm going for a bookish theme, I don't know, part of me is kind of like I don't want to pigeonhole myself into that.
You're like, this niche is getting tight.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if you narrow it down to it has to be World War II, it has to be bookish themed, it has I can see that it can get a little stifling.
But so you can also branch into science fiction for this, because here, nerd, I was reading your book, and when I got to the part where they start talking about the Maquis, I'm like, I thought Star Trek Voyager made that up. I had no idea it was a real term. I Googled it. I'm going, oh, well, that makes sense. They took it from that. They didn't just make it up. I didn't know it was spelled that way. I assumed it was something they made up for their Star Trekkiness, and I'm just going, how much of an idiot am I? I thought it was really awesome.
But the thing is, a lot of times, with fantasy and science fiction, that inspiration comes from somewhere. So now you got to learn a little bit of Trekkie, trivia that nobody else knows.
It's the only reason I can name any of the moons is because there's usually a space station named after them. Like Ganymede, I know that one. Oh yeah, on Eros, I know these. Do you know these? No, I know who lives there though. Nobody lives there. Well, they do in my world, okay?
They do in sci-fi world. And I will say,
go ahead.
I'm an old-fashioned book nerd, as I think most people are. I love that this book literally checked off a lot of my boxes because it had Anna Green Gables, it had
Yes.
Little Women,
Rebecca.
it had Secret Garden, and it had Rebecca.
Yeah.
I was like, are these all of the books that are my core memories? Is that what is happening?
I think Madeline shares them with you, so she's just like putting hers in there. She's like,
I know. It's just like Anna Green Gables. No, I love
Gables.
Oh, it's my favorite book. I'm like, everyone's like, what's your favorite book?
I was so excited when I found a good spot for the Secret Garden to go in.
I know, because that's, you know, it was. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but I don't feel like the little girl in the Secret Garden's overly likable until you understand her, and I think you handled that very well.
Thank you.
Because I was like, I don't.
It's not
like
only a novel; it is a defense of the protagonist of the Secret Garden, which I read as a child. I don't remember not liking her, but I don't remember it very well because I was little when I read it. It was like, whoosh.
She was a brat. I reread most of these when I was in my late 20s because I was like.
Because
I want to relive my childhood.
And maybe I didn't get she was a brat because I related. I'm like, yep, seems about right.
She's fine. She's normal. She's a normal girl. Well, Madeline, we've babbled a lot at you. I'm so excited for your next book. I'm thrilled that we got to have you here for the Librarian Spy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We were thrilled to have you for the last bookshop in London. I will say I loved this book.
Thank
more. So everybody make sure you definitely check out the Librarian Spy. I'm just going to do a little shameless plug for Allison and I next week. Next week is our 100th episode.
Congratulations. That's fantastic.
I know. And last week was our 2-year anniversary. So I wish we could have somehow synced those up, but we are not good at math.
We didn't coordinate that well.
Yeah, it's the math thing.
Like forethought planning and stuff, though.
I know. I'm like, that would require like plotting. Like going, what if we did that at the same time?
From a couple of Panthers as if.
I know. All of a sudden, it was just like,
happening.
Oh crap! It's our 100th
This
episode.
way you get to celebrate twice, so
We do.
That's awesome.
And we are celebrating next week with the fantastic author Sean S.A. Cosby, author of Blacktop Wasteland, Razorblade Tears, and the winner of every award that you can think of. And we're very excited to have Sean back.
If we just tried to do the opening with listing all his awards, we would be done with the show.
I kind of want to like make a scroll and be like
Star Wars credits.
The winner of... He would just be like, I'm just going to sit here and drink until you are done. And
he'd just get up and walk away.
He'd be like, I know, I'll see you when you're done with that.
We'll
so that will be next week on Wednesday, same time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 3 p.m. Pacific, other time zones in between.
We don't know those.
No, we don't know them.
It's 3 for me, 6 for you. The rest, we don't know.
Yeah.
It's like 4 and 5. And Mountain and Central, I always confuse. So
same thing.
Madeline, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, VOX VOMITUS. I love you, ladies.
We love you. We love you. Thank you for like putting up with our costumes. And
I love it.
Like, how long do we have to figure out what to wear from Poland? I mean, I really don't know.
I'm like, it's gonna be another 40s outfit for me.
I'm not wearing fur because A, I don't wear fur. B, it's hot here. I don't want to. Come on, you might have some in yours already, but
I do have some furs. Yes.
We'll just have to go there and have it there.
I mean, if we do like an all in person from my costume closet episode of VOX VOMITUS,
that would be amazing.
Let's just talk that through later on. I'm like, let's coordinate that. Whoever's listening, make a note. I'm like, that should be me. I should make a note.
That would be you.
That would be me. Thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you all next week.